For some reason it has to open Visual Studio, and even though it's already open. And for some reason that opened the README file. Very interesting. Okay, let me just get my layout back to what it used to be. I changed it for my stream, which you can follow at twitch.tv/nifty. Yeah, go to that to talk to me live. I can help you fix your errors and bugs and that kind of thing if you ever just want to catch up with me in real time. We are just going to basically commit these to GitHub real quick, and that's how we're going to kind of communicate as a content creator to audience in me checking your, checking your scripts. This hello world script, obviously we don't really care about this. That's kind of boring. I'm gonna literally close that. The interesting one is this. Now, if you've got some kind of error in here, I would hope that anything you've written incorrectly is kind of getting a red underline or something like that. That's not to say that you've necessarily spelt something incorrectly, it's just to say that you have potentially written something that isn't within the correct syntax of C#. So, what we're going to do is we're just going to commit this file here, this playermovement.cs, to GitHub. If you guys remember from my first tutorial, no, not the first tutorial, a couple of tutorials ago, we were committing stuff to GitHub. So I guess the best thing I can do is I can come out with the next part of the series, which is how to animate. So we're just going to do the animation really quickly. Once we've got the animation done, then we can commit those changes, and I can show you guys the process of doing that. You obviously will be adding the file, I'll be committing a change to the file. It's the same process. So we're just going to minimize this GitHub thing real quick. All right, so the first thing we are going to do, we're going to add a variable in here, which we're going to keep it private. So this is just going to be a variable that is helpful for... It's the variable we're going to use to check which direction our character is going to face. And then we'll write some functions based on this, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a private bool, and we are just going to call it facing right. You can call this facing left, but then you have to invert everything I'm doing. So I wouldn't recommend that. Now, by default, I think our character is going to start off facing right, which is why I chose facing right instead of facing left. But as I said, it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to initialize it as true. However, that will change every time we press the buttons to change the direction he is moving. We are now going to create our first function that isn't one of the pre-built ones that Unity provides. So it's not going to be update or fixed update. And then we're going to call the function, and it is going to flip our player. It's reasonably simple to do. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to work out where it's going to be called. I feel like this is something that we're going to put in fixed update, because this is the thing that handles all our physics, if you remember. So we are going to jump in under here. All right, so we got rigid body 2D dot velocity is equal to new vector horizontal movement, blah, 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 blah. So under this, we are going to call flip. This is what I'm going to be calling the function. Now, it's not going to have a definition, so you guys are going to have the little red underline, like what I was talking about. So if I tried to run this in Unity right now, it'd be like, no, you can't do that. Please stop trying. So we're going to go horizontal movement. And that's it. So what did we just do there? We are calling a function, and we're passing it some information that it is going to use to perform a task. Right, so moving on, we're going to create our flip function. Flipping would have 2 P's. Function. So we are going to make it private because I don't want anything else to be able to call this. Otherwise, there could be some really weird issues. And flip. Now, we're making this... Make it capitalized, please. We're making this a private void because it doesn't need to return anything. Okay, so private void flip. And it's just jumped down for some reason. Now, we're going to start with an if statement. An if statement... if you press tab, will autocomplete. An if statement is a statement that checks if something is true. And if it is true, it performs the task. The opposite to an if statement, I guess, would then be an else statement. So if the thing is not true, then it will run else. And else is just done like that. We don't need an else right now, so we're just going to focus on our if. So what we need to work out is, we need to work out what is true, okay? If you have too many if statements inside one another, it can get really confusing, so watch out for that, for the people who are going to go more advanced in coding. So we're going to check if the character is facing right, whether they should be facing right, if that makes sense. So if the character is moving to the left, we want him to be looking in the direction that he's facing, because I don't want my character facing backwards. That's just bad. That doesn't look as good. And it's going to screw up the animation, because we would then have to play the animation backwards for him walking backwards, and I don't want to do that. That's going to hurt my brain. So we're going to keep it nice and simple, and we're just going to check, is he moving to the left, and is he facing to the left? Because if not, then we need to change that. Horizontal is... yeah. Nope, that auto-completed is something I didn't want. Did I create another variable as well? Oh, I see. Right, one thing I forgot to do is I forgot to actually pass it an argument. So we're going to give it a float and we're going to call it horizontal. This is what we were passing it before. And you would have thought that I would have remembered that, but apparently not. So we're going to give it horizontal and go less than 0. So if you remember, our horizontal movement is the kind of the direction of our movement, ranging from -1 to +1, with 0 being we're not moving at all. If horizontal is less than 0, if we're moving to the left, because Cartesian planes in the x and y axis. If you're moving to the left, you're going negatively on the x-axis. So moving left on a horizontal plane, basically. Now we're going to do a little bit of terminology. This just means and. You don't put 1 ampersand in, you put in 2. And you go not facing right. So the bool facing right starts off as true. So if we're moving left and we are not facing right, then we want to run our function. So next we go, and this means or. The exclamation mark in front means the opposite of whatever that is. So with a bool, if it's true, then we're talking false. So now we want our horizontal. So we want the other kind of idea. We want greater than 0 and facing right. So here we've gone if horizontal is greater than 0. So if it's somewhere, because we have get axis raw, which is the slow lerping change from 0 to 1. All right, we're going to go facing right is equal to not facing right. So we're just going to change which way the bool is. So this bool is our storage for a little bit of information. So we need to update that first. We don't want this to be wrong, or otherwise the facing right above, like where it's being checked in the if statement. So here and here. If this is not the most up-to-date information, then it could call it the wrong way, and that would look really weird. Okay. So then we're going to create a vector3. Whoops, there we go. Vector3, and we're going to call it the scale. So that's just the scale of our player. And we're going to set it equal to transform.local scale. Now, what this effectively does is it creates another storage thing that we can use to change how our player is looking. This specific vector3 is talking about his scale. So if I go back into here, and we let it load because it is currently saving our script. All right, so I go to the player and I select him. Now he's got this thing that we've changed a couple of times called scale, right? Which in the variable terms that we've gotten here is his transform.local scale. You'll see this is his transform object. Object. Component, I guess you could also call it. He's got this, and then he's got his scale here. So we are going to be changing this, and we needed to access it by creating a new vector3, which would control it. So, and by doing transform.local scale, we know we're just talking about the object we're on. So under here, we're going to go the scale dot x because we're changing it on the x, not anything else. And we're going to go some more kind of syntax / terminology. Times equals, which is a way of saying multiply it with whatever I put next, -1. What we just did there was use an operator. An operator is a quick and easy way of performing a function without having to write one ourselves. What we did was multiply the scale of our object by -1, which you've seen me do multiple times in this series. So what effectively happened there in the code is it took out the scale itself, the scale variable that we created. It then multiplied the scale itself by -1. Now, the normal way of writing this out would be the scale is equal to the scale times -1, but you can shorten it by adding the multiplies equal operator. So effectively, we're timesing the x variable here by -1. So we want to be flipping our player. So if I set this to -1, he flips around the other way. So this was important if you remember the video where we were making sure that he was lined up in the center of his own style sheet? What was it called? Sprite sheet. There we go. And then one more little bit. Transform dot local scale is equal to the scale. So a real quick change we're just going to make is we're going to invert the exclamation marks. Hey guys, Josh from the future here. So effectively what I needed to do there was I needed to change the exclamation marks in the if statement, specifically so that we would be checking the correct thing. What I had written was going to flip us around if we were facing the way we were moving, and that's not obviously what we want. So I changed it around so that when you put the exclamation marks in the opposite points, or if you were to even change the greater than symbols, greater than and less than symbols, you could switch them around. So you make those changes, it'll be checking for the correct thing instead of what we had, which was going to flip it in case it was facing the way we were moving, which would obviously look very poor. So that's all from future Josh. Ta-ta. So we got our player, and if we run him, he will now move left and right, and look, he's facing in the direction. Now, we don't have to add too many lines of code to animate him. The biggest thing is we have to get our animator set up correctly. So I'm just going to do that really quickly, as much as possible. Hey guys, so this video ended up being about 45 minutes long, so I'm cutting it there just so you guys don't have to watch as much all at once. I know some of you won't mind having some of the longer videos, but lots of people do like to keep their tutorials brief. So one thing before I go is that you guys got me from 60 subscribers to 150 since I've last uploaded, and I just really needed to acknowledge how much I appreciate all of you for doing that. Welcome to the new people, and yeah, just basically thank you for coming along for the ride, and for the criticisms that people are leaving to help me improve. I'm really appreciating all the nice comments as well. So stick around, the next video will be released real shortly. Yeah, thank you, and bye-bye.